I remember walking into that conference room like it was yesterday. The air was thick with ambition, the kind that smelled faintly of expensive cologne and desperation. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over Crystal City, but I wasn't admiring the view. My eyes scanned the main table, past the slick suits and the nervous energy, until they landed on Brendan. My younger brother. Grinning like he'd already won the lottery, 3 seats down from the CEO. He didn't even glance my way. Just kept smoothing over the executives, like I was invisible. Then Victor Vance, the CEO himself, looked up from his tablet. He gave me the full once-over, from my shoes to my hairline. His gaze lingered on my worn leather briefcase, 15 years old, brass clasp tarnished just so. It looked exactly like something a high school principal would carry to a PTA meeting. That was intentional. People tend to underestimate you when you don't look expensive. I'd built an entire career on that underestimation. Victor's eyes moved to my jacket, my tie, my haircut. All of it, clearly, falling short of whatever standard he held in his head. Then he pointed to the corner. "Consultant," he said, not even looking at me again. "Sit over there. This discussion is above your clearance level." A few nervous chuckles rippled around the table. Brendan's was the loudest. Which was pretty impressive, considering he still hadn't actually looked at me. I just stood there, holding my worn briefcase. Didn't sit. The little red light on the security camera in the corner caught my eye. Standard protocol for controlled defense programs. Everything recorded. That little red light, I remember thinking, was about to become the most expensive LED in Stanton Aerospace's history. But nobody else in that room knew it yet. Only me. Victor looked up again, visibly annoyed. I said, "Sit down. The adults are talking." More laughter. A guy named Tyler, early 30s, actually started reaching for his phone. Arthur, the finance director, gave him a look. Tyler's hand went right back to the table. I stayed standing, folded my arms across my chest, kept my face completely neutral. "There's something you should know before we start," I said. My voice was level, quiet, but it cut through the room. Victor's eyes narrowed. "What's that?" "If you want me in that corner chair," I told him, "then by Thursday morning, $58 million in milestone payments won't be part of this program anymore." Dead silence. Brendan's grin flickered, then died completely. Then Tyler laughed, a loud, forced bark. "Sure thing, Grandpa. Maybe threaten us with your AARP card next." More nervous laughter from a few others. Victor Vance just shook his head, like I was some confused old man who'd wandered in looking for the restroom. "Enough," he snapped. "Sit down and let the professionals handle this. Here's the thing about defense aviation that most people don't understand. It's not like regular business, where you can cut corners and apologize later, maybe send out a software patch and hope nobody noticed. The Department of Defense doesn't hand out $58 million checks because you asked nicely and showed up with a PowerPoint. They release milestone payments against certification gates. And those gates don't open without a delegated airworthiness signatory confirming that the software won't turn a multi-million-dollar aircraft into a very expensive lawn dart. For Stanton Aerospace's new flight control system, for this contract, that signatory was me. I'm Ethan. 47. I'd been doing this for 23 years, ever since I left the Air Force. My entire professional life has been about reviewing systems that keep pilots alive, verifying compliance with standards written in blood over decades of aviation accidents. Signing off on airworthiness determinations that mean the difference between a fighter jet performing correctly and a funeral with full military honors. Without my approval on this specific program, no milestone gate closes, no payment gets released, no stock options vest, and no vacation condos get purchased. Brendan knew I worked in defense certification. He just never bothered to ask what that actually meant. Why would he? I was just his boring older brother who drove a 10-year-old truck. 8 months earlier, Stanton had won this huge DoD contract for next-generation flight control software. It was military-grade stuff, redundant processing channels, real-time fault detection, automatic failover. The kind of tech that keeps fighter pilots alive when everything goes sideways at Mach 2 and 30,000 feet. Total contract value, around $170 million across 3 phases. And this first $58 million milestone payment? It was contingent on passing the initial airworthiness certification review. Which, required my signature. I'd been assigned to the program the day the contract was finalized. The DoD likes continuity on critical programs. One airworthiness signatory from start to finish, tracking every decision, every document, every line of code that might matter when lives are on the line. Brendan, meanwhile, had been so focused on the business development side, the handshakes, the golf outings, the expensive dinners, he'd never bothered to check who was actually assigned to the technical certification. My phone had been buzzing all morning, a chaotic start to what I knew would be a critical day. The drive from Philadelphia to Crystal City should have taken an hour. But some genius in a BMW decided to play bumper cars on I-81, and I spent 40 minutes watching a tow truck fish Bavarian engineering out of a guardrail. My girlfriend, Olivia, had texted twice. First, she'd pick up groceries. Second, chicken or salmon for dinner. Then came the text from my mother, Patricia. *, your brother says the big meeting is today. We're all so proud of Brendan. Make sure you're supportive, Ethan. This is important, *, that was Patricia in a nutshell. 47 years of raising 2 sons, and she still couldn't send me a message that wasn't really about Brendan. My father, Richard, was even worse. He'd given up the pretense somewhere around my 12th birthday, when I said I wanted to be an engineer instead of a lawyer like him. Brendan is 3 years younger than me, and about 300% more charming. He's the VP of Business Development at Stanton. Loud. Confident. Absolutely convinced the universe revolves around his $500 haircuts and his ability to shake hands with important people. He drives a car that costs more than my first house, wears expensive watches, and for the past 8 months, he'd been telling everyone at family gatherings that this DoD contract was his masterpiece. His ticket to the C-suite. His moment. Our parents had bought the hype completely. 6 months ago, they'd refinanced their house and taken out a home equity line of credit. $80,000 borrowed against 3 decades of mortgage payments. All because Brendan convinced them his stock options were about to pay out big once the first milestone payment came through. He'd promised them a $200,000 return on their investment, maybe enough to finally buy that vacation condo in South Carolina they'd been talking about for years. My mother had called me when they were signing the papers, asked if I thought it was a good idea. I'd told her I didn't know enough about Stanton's financials to comment. She'd said that was just like me, to be unsupportive. That Brendan believed in himself, and she wished I could do the same. What nobody in my family seemed to realize was that the $58 million milestone payment couldn't be released without my signature. I finally got to the Crystal City garage at 9:40, 20 minutes before the meeting. Parked my truck between a Mercedes and a Tesla, grabbed my briefcase, and headed for the elevator. That's when I walked in. Victor Vance pulled up his presentation on the wall screen, timelines, technical specifications, confident projections about delivery dates that I already knew they couldn't hit. He talked like he was briefing 4-star generals, except he clearly had never actually briefed a general in his life. Arthur, the finance director, spoke up. He was early 60s, gray hair, calm demeanor. One of the few people in the room who looked like he'd actually been around the block a few times. These deployment schedules are aggressive, Arthur said carefully. They're necessary, not aggressive, Victor shot back. That's why we're here. Final certification sign-off. Get the government approval. Release the milestone payment. Start phase 2. I shifted my briefcase from one hand to the other. The motion caught a few glances. You can leave that outside, Victor said without looking at me. We don't need consultants weighing in on technical matters. I'll keep it here, I replied. The case contains the certification authorization documents. A long pause. Several people looked up from their tablets. Brendan finally turned to look at me. First time since I'd walked in. He looked confused. We're here to finalize the certification, Victor said, his voice harder now. Certifications require proper authorization. Victor folded his hands on the table like a professor about to explain something to a slow student. And who exactly do you represent? The Department of Defense. Brendan's face went blank. Ethan, what do you mean? His voice cracked when he said my name. I met his eyes and held them. That's my job. You're the airworthiness signatory? Victor asked, a hint of genuine confusion in his tone. I'm the delegated airworthiness signatory assigned to this program. Without my signature on the airworthiness determination, no milestone gate closes. No payment gets released. That's not what we were told. Nobody asked the right person. Victor's expression changed. It was the kind of look you get when you realize you've made a very serious mistake. Brendan's voice went up an octave. This is a conflict of interest. He's my brother. He can't be objective. I turned to look at him directly. I disclosed our relationship to the DoD contracting office the day I was assigned, 8 months ago. They reviewed the program structure, confirmed you have zero involvement in the technical certification package, documented the firewall between business development and airworthiness review, and cleared me to proceed. The disclosure memo is in my briefcase. 3 copies, signed, dated, and filed. Want to see it? He didn't have an answer for that. Arthur spoke up. He's listed as primary airworthiness signatory on all our DoD filings. Has been from the beginning. Victor's voice got colder. This meeting was supposed to be about final coordination. Final coordination requires someone who can approve the certification, or deny it. A woman named Eleanor, one of the board members, started flipping through her contract copy with increasing intensity. She stopped on a page near the back. There's something here about a conduct provision. Section 15. Arthur read from the document, enunciating each word clearly. It ties certification approval to professional conduct during all compliance proceedings. Any documented behavior that materially damages working relationships allows for immediate certification suspension. Tyler stopped smirking. The color drained from his face. Without prior notice, Eleanor confirmed. Without prior notice, I said. It's standard language for controlled defense programs. Your lawyers drafted it 8 months ago. Our lawyers approved that language, Victor said, but his voice had lost its edge. They drafted it at my specific request. Because I've seen what happens when companies don't take certification oversight seriously. Arthur glanced at the security camera. The red light was steady. This meeting is being recorded, he stated. Standard protocol, Victor said quickly. Yes. For documentation. Eleanor spoke up again. Has this conduct clause ever been triggered? Once, I said. A contractor lost their airworthiness authorization, out of business in 6 months, 200 people looking for jobs, 3 years of development down the drain. I paused for effect. Over a similar misunderstanding about professional courtesy. Victor stood up so fast his chair hit the wall behind him with a bang that made half the room flinch. We're taking 15. The hallway outside was chaos. The kind where everyone talks in whispers and nobody wants to be the first to say what they're all thinking. Board members clustered in small groups. I could see them replaying the meeting in their heads, trying to figure out where everything had gone wrong. Brendan caught up to me near the water fountain. His face was red. His hands were shaking. I'd never seen him like this. The guy who could charm his way through any room, any meeting, any situation, now looked like someone had kicked his legs out from under him. "What are you doing?" "This is my contract, my career. Your CEO just pointed me to a folding chair and called me grandpa on camera in front of 12 witnesses. So what? That's just how Victor is. You're going to tank a $58 million payment because your feelings got hurt? I'm going to uphold airworthiness standards. That's my job. Has been for 23 years. Your job is to rubber stamp paperwork. That's all you've ever been, Ethan. A bureaucrat with a briefcase. Nobody in this industry takes you seriously." "That's interesting," I said, meeting his furious gaze, "because right now, I'm the only person in this building whose signature matters." I walked away from him and found a quiet corner near the stairwell. Pulled up my secure phone and called Leo. Leo had been my partner for 11 years. Former Air Force like me. We'd served together at Nelly AFB, testing systems that were supposed to work and sometimes didn't. He was 5'6", built like a fireplug, and the best documentation specialist I'd ever met. The kind of guy who could find a discrepancy in a 1,000-page technical manual while eating a sandwich. "Go ahead," he answered. "Initiate the certification hold for Program 749 or Alpha." A brief pause. I could hear him typing. Full hold. Full hold. 48 hours. Professional conduct violation. Security footage available. Multiple witnesses. Copy that. Leo's voice had a hint of amusement. How bad was it? Folding chair. Called me grandpa. Told me the discussion was above my clearance level. Leo whistled. The old folding chair gambit. Classic power move. Saw it backfire beautifully about 5 years ago on another program. You know what this reminds me of? Don't say it. That scene in Goodfellas where Tommy thinks he's getting made and instead he gets, yeah, I know the scene. Just file the paperwork. Do notification goes out 0800 tomorrow. I'll have the documentation package ready by noon. Video clips, witness list, timeline, the whole thing. And Ethan? Yeah? Tell me you got it on camera. Security system was recording the whole time. Beautiful, Leo said. Absolutely beautiful. This is going to be one for the training manual. He paused. You okay? I'm fine. Just another day in defense aviation. Sure. Another day where you watch your brother's company implode because his boss couldn't resist being a jerk. Totally normal Tuesday. I hung up and walked back toward the conference room. Victor Vance was waiting near the door. He looked smaller somehow. Look, he said, maybe we got off on the wrong foot. Maybe you could have clarified your role from the start, I replied. I tried. You told me to sit in the corner. He didn't have a response for that. I walked past him. Back inside, the room was trying to reset. Papers shuffled. Coffee poured. People avoided making eye contact with me. Victor clicked to his next slide, but the confidence in his voice was gone. As we were discussing, the deployment timeline requires immediate certification sign-off. I cleared my throat. All eyes turned to me. There's been a development. Victor's face went pale. What development? The DoD will receive formal notification tomorrow morning that this certification is under administrative review. What kind of review? Conduct assessment. Standard procedure when professional standards are questioned during certification proceedings. Brendan stood up fast. This is personal. You're doing this because you've always been jealous of me. I'm doing this, I said, looking right at him, because your CEO demonstrated that this company doesn't take certification oversight seriously. That's a safety issue. When the guy responsible for signing off on flight-critical software gets pointed to a folding chair and mocked in front of the entire leadership team? That tells me everything I need to know about how this company approaches quality control. Victor slammed his hand on the table. This is blackmail. This is consequences. Eleanor spoke up, her voice tight. What would it take to stop the review? I looked around the table slowly, making eye contact with each person. Nothing. It's already in motion. Review notification goes out 0800 tomorrow. Initial documentation package to DoD procurement by Thursday noon. Final determination follows leadership review. I picked up my briefcase and walked out. Later, the phone calls started. First, my mother. I don't remember you sacrificing anything for me. Don't be dramatic. I paid for my own college. Mom, I paid for my own flight training. I bought my own house. Every major milestone in my adult life, I handled myself because you two were too busy investing in Brendan's future to notice I existed. That's not fair. It's the truth. Then my father, Richard, got on the line. His voice was cold. Fix this, Ethan. Whatever your brother did to upset you, get over it. Brendan's CEO humiliated me on camera. Brendan laughed. So what? You think respect is free? You earn it by helping people who matter. Right now, Brendan matters, and you don't. You've never mattered. You've always been the difficult one, the stubborn one, the one who had to do everything the hard way instead of accepting help. The help you never offered, I countered, my own voice tight. Fix this, Ethan, or you're not part of this family anymore. I hung up, sat in my truck in the parking lot for a minute, just processing. Then I drove home. Olivia was supposed to get there around 7 o'clock. She texted that she was running late. Traffic. I made myself a sandwich and waited. She walked in around 7:30, set down grocery bags, looked at me, and something was different. The sweet girlfriend act was slipping. I just talked to your mother. I know. She sat down across from me at the kitchen table. Ethan, I need you to understand what you're doing here. This affects us. Our future. What future? The house we've been looking at. The life we talked about building. Brendan told me if the certification goes through, his stock options would be worth close to $300,000. Your parents would be fine. We could finally move forward with everything we've been waiting for. When did you talk to Brendan about his stock options? She hesitated. Just long enough for me to notice. We've been talking. He's your brother. I wanted to understand what was happening with the family. How long? A few weeks? Maybe a month? A month? You've been texting my brother for a month behind my back? I was trying to help everyone get on the same page. You never tell me anything about your work. Because my work is classified. If I'd known you had this kind of power, I could have helped you see how important it was to just sign off and support your family. You could have helped me compromise my professional integrity? I could have helped you be a team player for once. I looked at her for a long moment. 2 years together, dinners, vacations, conversations about the future. And the whole time she'd been building relationships with my family that I didn't know about, positioning herself for whatever outcome benefited her most. Your mother thinks you're having a breakdown, she said. That you're jealous of Brendan because he's more successful than you. Did she tell you to say that? We all think it. I just didn't want to believe it until, Olivia, get out. Excuse me? Get out. Pack whatever you need tonight. I'll box up the rest of your stuff and leave it on the porch. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. You've been working my family behind my back for a month, gathering intel, positioning yourself for whatever outcome benefits you most. She stood up. Her face had gone cold. The mask was completely off now. Fine. But when this blows up in your face and you realize you've destroyed everything, don't come crawling back to me. I won't. She grabbed her purse and left. Slammed the door hard enough to rattle the pictures on the wall. I sat in the quiet for a while, thought about calling someone, decided against it, and made myself dinner. The next morning, Leo was waiting at the office with a stack of documents and 2 cups of gas station coffee. He was grinning. How bad is it for them? I asked. Stanton's going to be flagged in the system within 24 hours. Any active certifications held pending review. For programs total. About $200 million in pending payments across the board. He slid a folder across the desk. But that's not the interesting part. What's the interesting part? I did some digging last night. Couldn't sleep. You know how I get when something doesn't add up. I knew. Leo had once spent 3 days tracking down a discrepancy in a certification package that turned out to be a typo, but the typo had masked a real problem that would have killed people. He trusted his instincts. Your brother's been busy, he continued. Turns out Brendan knew you were assigned as the airworthiness signatory. He found out 3 months ago. I stared at him. What? Internal email from Stanton's contracts office. They flagged the potential conflict of interest just like they're supposed to, and sent it up the chain for review. Your brother was copied on the distribution. He replied acknowledging receipt, timestamp, digital signature, the whole thing. He knew, Ethan. He knew for 3 months and he didn't say a word. Not to you. Not to Victor. Not to anyone. Why would he keep that quiet? Leo shrugged. Maybe he figured he could manage you. Big brother who always bails him out when things get tough. Maybe he thought you'd just sign off because family loyalty trumps professional integrity. Or maybe he was setting me up to take the blame if anything went wrong. That, too. Oh, I had no idea my brother was the airworthiness signatory. What a coincidence. He must have approved it because we're family, not because the technical work was sound. Either way, he wins, and you're the bad guy. I leaned back in my chair. He knew this whole time. He knew, and he let Victor humiliate me anyway. Gets better. Leo pulled out another document. Your girlfriend, Olivia. Maiden name is Hartley. She went to Ohio State same years as your brother. Same business school, same professional fraternity. They knew each other before. Leo slid a printout across the desk. A photo from 2018. Business fraternity formal. Olivia and Brendan standing close together, her hand on his arm. Both smiling at the camera. My stomach dropped. Now, I'm not saying anything definitive, Leo said carefully. Could be coincidence. People meet through mutual connections all the time. But your brother introduces you to a woman he went to college with, who turns out to be very interested in your career details, who's been texting him behind your back for at least a month. That's a pattern worth noticing. I sat with that for a minute. 2 years with Olivia, and now this photo, this connection I never knew about. Maybe it was innocent. Maybe Brendan really did just think we'd hit it off. Maybe she reconnected with him recently because of family stuff. Or maybe I'd been played. Not necessarily some elaborate scheme from day one, but at minimum, they'd been coordinating behind my back. At minimum, she'd chosen his side over mine. At minimum, there was a relationship there that she'd hidden for 2 years. Either way, it didn't matter anymore. She was gone. The truth could stay murky. Leo watched me process it. You okay? I'll be fine. What else you got? My secure phone buzzed. Text from Arthur at Stanton. Asterisk, can we talk? Off the record, asterisk, I showed Leo. Interesting, he said. The finance guy wants to chat. Think he's trying to save his own skin? Only one way to find out. I called Arthur back. He answered on the first ring. Mr. Parker, thank you for calling. I wanted you to know something. I'm listening. I've been documenting issues at Stanton for 2 years. Quality control shortcuts. Schedule pressure overriding safety protocols. Victor dismissing concerns from the engineering team. Red flags that got buried because raising them meant getting labeled as not a team player. I have records. Emails, meeting notes, internal memos that got deleted from the company servers, but not from my personal backups. Why are you telling me this? Because I've been waiting for someone to actually do something about it. I raised concerns through proper channels 3 times, got shut down every time. Victor called me a pessimist. Said I didn't understand the business realities. And because I have a daughter who's a pilot in the Navy. She flies F-18s off carriers. I don't want her, or anyone like her, flying anything that got certified by a company that treats oversight personnel like furniture. That's a good reason. I spent 20 years at Boeing before this. I know what good safety culture looks like. Stanton isn't it. Never was. I should have left a year ago, but I kept hoping things would change. Now I'm just hoping the damage can be contained. Send me what you have. I will. Everything I've got. And Mr. Parker, thank you for not backing down. For not just signing off because it was easier. There aren't enough people like you in this industry. He hung up. Leo was grinning again. Looks like we've got an inside man. Looks like it. This just got a lot more interesting. Wednesday evening, my phone rang. Colonel Eleanor Hayes, from Pentagon Procurement Review. Mr. Parker, I'm calling about the Stanton Aerospace Review. Finished the preliminary assessment this afternoon. What did you find? Documentation is comprehensive. Security footage is crystal clear. We pulled the recording from 3 different angles. The moment where he points at the folding chair? That's going to be used in training materials for years. Multiple witnesses, including 4 board members who've already submitted statements distancing themselves from Victor Vance's behavior. And we received some additional materials from an internal source that paint a very concerning picture of the company's overall approach to safety compliance. Arthur's documents had made it through. Good recommendation? Immediate suspension from all active certifications. Enhanced oversight requirements for any future programs. Minimum 18 months before reinstatement can even be considered. Frankly, given what we found in those internal documents, I'd recommend they never get reinstated, but that's above my pay grade. When does it go final? Report to Pentagon leadership tomorrow morning at 0700. Official notification to Stanton by end of business Thursday. They'll have until Friday to respond, but there's nothing they can say that's going to change the outcome. Thank you, Colonel. One more thing, Mr. Parker. The materials from the internal source documented a pattern of behavior going back 2 years. Shortcuts on testing protocols, schedule pressure overriding safety concerns, engineers being told to sign off on incomplete verification. This was a company culture problem from top to bottom. I figured as much. The professional standards initiative we've been developing? Your case is going to be the pilot program. The way you handled this, that's exactly what we want to see replicated across the industry. We'd like you involved in building it out. I'd be interested in discussing that. Good. We'll talk after the dust settles, which should be about the time Stanton's valuation turns into a yard sale. She hung up. Thursday morning, Victor called. His voice sounded like someone had let all the air out of him. It's over, isn't it? You'll have official notification this afternoon. 18-month suspension. Our lawyers say that's a death sentence for a company our size. We can't survive 18 months without DoD work. Probably not. You destroyed us. No, you did. Over a folding chair. Over respect. The board fired me an hour ago. I heard. For what it's worth, I get it now. What I did wrong, do you? Respect isn't something you give people after they prove they deserve it. It's baseline. It's how you treat everyone who walks through the door. That's a start, he mumbled. Too late, but it's a start. He hung up. Thursday evening, Brendan showed up at my apartment. Leo had bet me $20 he'd come before the weekend. I owed him dinner now. Brendan looked bad. You happy now? He asked. Not particularly. You destroyed everything. My career. Mom and Dad's retirement. Brooke's talking about lawyers. Brooke is his wife, by the way. That's rough, I said. That's rough? That's all you have to say? What do you want me to say, Brendan? You knew I was assigned to your certification. You knew for 3 months. You could have pulled me aside. Could have told Victor to show some basic professionalism. Instead, you let him mock me on camera and you laughed. I didn't think, no, you didn't. You never do. You just assume everything will work out because it always has. This was supposed to be my moment. And you could have shared it. We could have been on the same team, brothers working together on a major defense contract. But you couldn't do that, could you? You needed me to be invisible while you took all the credit. He was quiet for a moment. The Olivia thing. We stayed in touch after I introduced you too. She'd ask about family stuff. Update me on how you were doing. You were keeping tabs on me through my girlfriend? It wasn't like that. Not at first. But when the certification assignment came up, she started asking more questions about your work, about how you'd handle pressure. I should have told you, but you didn't. No, I figured if things got complicated, she could help smooth things over. Talk you into being reasonable. Yeah, you mean do what you wanted. I'm sorry. Sorry that it didn't work. He didn't answer. Go home, Brendan. Fix your marriage if you can. Find a new job. But don't come back here expecting me to feel bad for you. You made your choices. Now you get to live with them. He left without another word. I closed the door and made dinner. 6 months later, Stanton Aerospace filed for bankruptcy. 218 people out of work. The flight control system that was supposed to be the future of military aviation would never see production. 3 years of development, $170 million in contract value, all gone. Because one CEO couldn't resist the urge to muck an old guy with a worn-out briefcase. The bankruptcy proceedings were messy. Finger-pointing everywhere. Board members blaming Victor. Victor blaming the board. Lawyers making more money than anyone else in the room. Same story you see every time a company this size goes under. Arthur had landed on his feet. His documentation had helped the DoD investigators understand exactly how bad things were at Stanton. The problems went deeper than anyone had realized. Shortcuts on testing protocols. Engineers being pressured to sign off on incomplete work. Safety concerns getting buried under schedule pressure. The folding chair thing was just the tip of it. Arthur was consulting now, helping other companies build the kind of compliance culture that Stanton never had. We grabbed lunch every few weeks. Good guy. His daughter was stationed in Jacksonville, flying F-18s off carriers. Every time we talked, he mentioned how grateful he was that she wasn't flying anything Stanton had built. Brendan had been let go 3 months after the suspension hit. Officially, it was a restructuring. Unofficially, the new leadership wanted nothing to do with anyone connected to the Victor Vance era. Couldn't blame them. Last I heard through the family grapevine, he was working at a car dealership in North Carolina, not selling cars, just doing paperwork in the back office, processing title transfers and loan applications, filing documents for minimum wage plus whatever commission the actual salespeople didn't want. Apparently, Brooke had gone through with the divorce. She kept the house, the car, and most of their savings. Brendan was living in a 1-bedroom apartment now, in a complex that advertised move-in specials to attract tenants. A long way from the McMansion he'd been planning to buy with his stock option windfall. My parents lost their house. The hellic payments became unmanageable once Brendan's income disappeared and his stock options turned worthless. They'd had to sell at a loss and move into a rental apartment in a part of town they'd always looked down on. My mother had sent me 2 emails blaming me for everything. Long, rambling emails about how I'd always been selfish, how I'd never supported the family, how I'd destroyed their retirement out of spite. I'd read them, considered responding, decided there was nothing to say that would change anything. They'd made their choice decades ago. Now they were living with the consequences. My father hadn't contacted me at all. 6 months of radio silence, probably for the best. Anything he said would just be a variation on the same theme. I'd failed to be a team player, failed to put family first, failed to do what I was told. Olivia had moved on within a month. New boyfriend, some finance guy with a corner office and a LinkedIn profile full of buzzwords. Exactly what she'd been shopping for all along. I hoped they'd be very happy together, in the way you hope your ex's new car breaks down on the highway. Leo knocked on my office door and walked in with his usual gas station coffee. He'd been promoted to senior documentation lead for the new professional standards initiative. Bigger office, same terrible coffee. Seen the news? He dropped a printout on my desk. Pentagon finalizes professional standards initiative, new oversight requirements for defense contractors. I skimmed the article. Conduct compliance programs, certification authority protections, mandatory respect training for contractor executives. They specifically named you as director, Leo said. $12 million over 3 years. Plus the satisfaction of knowing every defense contractor CEO in the country is going to think twice before pointing at a folding chair. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. This is Ethan. Mr. Parker, this is Samantha Vance. I recognized the name. Victor Vance's daughter. I'd read about her in the business coverage of Stanton's collapse. MIT MBA, had worked at the company for 2 years before everything fell apart. What can I do for you? I wanted to thank you for holding my father accountable. Thank me? He treated everyone that way. Employees, vendors, family, even me. The bankruptcy forced him to actually look at himself for the first time in 30 years. He's getting help now. Actually listening when people talk. That's good. I'm starting my own company, Defense Consulting. Helping contractors build better workplace cultures before they end up like my father's company. Prevention instead of punishment. Sounds like important work. I want you as an advisor. Because you held a line that needed to be held. Because this industry needs more people willing to enforce standards instead of looking the other way. Send me the business plan. I'll take a look. But Rebecca, yes? If you ever point anyone at a folding chair, I'll shut you down just as fast. She laughed. I'd expect nothing less. After she hung up, Leo was still standing there, grinning like an idiot. What? You're going soft in your old age. I'm being practical. Better to help build good companies than spend all my time tearing down bad ones. So, you're taking the Pentagon job? I picked up my phone, started typing a response to Colonel Hayes. What are you telling her? That I'm interested, with conditions. Full authority on conduct violations. Real-time documentation requirements. Mandatory training for all contractor executives who interact with certification personnel. Think they'll agree? If they want it to work, they don't have a choice. Within 30 seconds, my phone buzzed. Asterisk all conditions approved. Start date negotiable. Looking forward to working with you. Asterisk that evening, I found the Cuban cigars I'd packed in my briefcase 8 months earlier. Still in the box, never opened. I'd meant to share them after the certification sign-off. I put the cigars back in my briefcase. The next morning, I drove back to Crystal City. Same building, different conference room, different energy entirely. When I walked in, 12 defense contractor executives stood up from their chairs and waited for me to sit before taking their own seats. Leo was there, too, sitting in the corner with his coffee and tablet, ready to document everything. He caught my eye and gave me a nod. I set my briefcase on the table and looked around the room. Some of them looked nervous, some curious. All of them knew why they were here. I opened my briefcase and pulled out the first agenda item. Leo, still in the corner, muttered just loud enough for me to hear, "This is like the end of Shawshank Redemption, except instead of a beach in Mexico, you got a government pension and a really nice view of Crystal City." I almost smiled. Some lessons are worth the wait. Respect isn't something you give people after they prove they deserve it. It's baseline. When you're certifying software that keeps pilots alive, everyone at the table matters. And when you forget that, when you decide some people are worth less than others based on how expensive their watch is, it doesn't matter how smart you are, you'll end up explaining to an empty boardroom why your company doesn't exist anymore. What do you think is the biggest lesson these executives took from that day?